G'day, welcome back to Flat Tank Journey. My name's Chris and welcome into my shed. Time for another episode of the Raleigh. It's actually moving along at breakneck speed and I'm really pleased with it now. I'm still ahead of you, so I've decided to release more videos just a little more frequently. Give you a bit more detail and hopefully you like it. This episode is about resolving the oil feed into the engine. Raleigh had quite a unique oil metering system that the parts are made of pot metal, I think, and you just can't buy them, you can't get them. And I was told that by the guy from the Raleigh Club in the UK, who's been an enormous amount of help. Anyway, he gave me a solution. It involved machining, which is one of my favourite things. Hope you enjoy the episode. Let me know if you think this is going to work. Humid as hell today, only about 20 degrees, but the humidity is super high. I'm back to trying to resolve the oil feed on the Raleigh. So on the side of the timing chain case is what I thought was an oil pump. It's not an oil pump, it's an oil metering system to meter out, or early attempts to meter out the right amount of oil to feed into the engine. Now, I'm told by the spare parts person from the Raleigh Club in the UK that these parts are unobtainium. You just can't find them, give it up. And he gave me a solution, which was really good of him. So here's the piece that feeds the oil into the engine. And, you know, it's a basic banjo fitting, I suppose. The oil inside that case comes through into a recess with a hole in it, and it runs down it and drips into the engine. That's simple. So Simon's advice to me was get a banjo fitting, and this is what he'd done, and remake this piece, attaching a banjo to the end and just hand pump every couple of miles, and I've got several of those. So I don't think it's a big difficulty. I just need to nut it out and be careful. I'm going to attempt making it out of brass, out of something soft, because I need to drill a 4.5mm hole all the way down the centre of a piece that's about 3.5 inches long, 90mm, something like that. I'll pluck you off the tripod and I'll show you these parts close up, eh? Down on the bench now, and you can see what I need to make. Here's the compression fitting with the oil banjo on the bottom, that in the crankcase, or the timing chain case, that's where the oil feed would have gone through that little hole and then dripped down and into the engine via a hole just here. So I need to turn that piece into that piece. This is 1/4 inch British Standard pipe, I think. I'm fortunate enough to have a tap to take that, and that's probably why I bought the 1/4 inch to begin with. That should be easy enough to make. Making this bit, I've got to concentrate on a few measurements. Firstly, the measurement from here, this shoulder, to here, because that's how far into the engine it goes. This is 8mm. This is nominally 10mm, or 3/8. I think that's actually 804, and this is 991 or 2, allowing for a bit of wear. But this is 3/8 cycle thread. That should be easy. I've got a die. And then this measurement is irrelevant. That's just coming out of the engine and through the timing chain case. So I just need to leave it big enough to manage that. Bear with me while I have a go. I've got 2 chunks of brass, so I can afford to get it wrong once. This little job's going okay at the minute. I've taken one end, doesn't matter what length, down to 18mm, which is the outside diameter of this whole fitting. So we end up with a nice little clean looking stub out the end of the motor. I've also managed to get a 4mm hole right down the middle Took ages. Well, not ages. Took a fair while. Used a centering drill. Then I used a stubby drill that was 4mm. Took it into its maximum depth. Going in about 1.5 millimeters at a time and cleaning the bit out, and then in and out and in and out. Pardon the expression. I then transferred over to a long drill bit and did the same thing, trying to keep it on centre. Now there's actually a little dimple in this end on the centre, and I'm right in the middle, so it's really cool. So I'm going to spin it around now, grab it in the chuck this way, and put a live centre in this end to support it, and machine this end off down to these two diameters. This diameter that goes into the engine, and this diameter that goes into the thread. Come over and have a look. Here's the setup that I'm using to try and machine this piece. I've got the piece that I turned down to 18mm, mounted up in the chuck, and I put a live centre up to hold the 4mm hole so that I can turn this larger piece down, firstly down to just on 10mm, this piece, and then that's 3/8 26 threads per inch, and then we're a little bit narrower here to get a die to slip over the top. Let me see if I can do that without cocking this up. Alrighty, done the machining on. I've done the machining on the piece that goes into the engine. I've got to cut that thread. I don't need to cut the hole. That's the previous input of the oil feed from the timing chain case. So I don't need to cut that hole because it only fed into that to go into the engine, or at least that's how I understand it for now. I've just made this portion a little bit bigger so it goes back out of the timing chain case and lets me thread this piece for my other fitting. I'm just going to give this a clean up, get it out of the lathe and cut those threads. Well, I snuck away and cut that thread. Now that thread might have cut ever so slightly to one side. Didn't think it would. I just held it in the vise and slid the tap down over the top. Don't know. It's not hard to make, so if it's wrong, it won't really matter. A nut screws onto it really well, and I'm really happy with it. So when you lay it out a bit like that, oops, wrong. When you lay it out like that, you can see they're almost identical. I've cut a turn or two more on thread on that, just in case I'm not in the right place. Now I need to decide how I'm going to go about cutting this end. I want this diameter to stay, but I need to put a thread in it. Now that's 1/4 inch national pipe thread, which is 12.96. Don't ask me why 1/4 inch is that, but it is. I've never understood plumbing threads. It's something to do with the internal diameter of the pipe that it goes into or something. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let me have a think about this for a bit and then I'll scratch my head and then I'll do something. Righto, off camera I bored an 11mm hole, which is the nominal drill size for British standard pipe, and I used my very dirty tapping drill sizes charts, can't live without it, to get the right size. Then I used the 1/4 inch BSP tap to tap the thread. Now I've only got the one tap. I haven't got a bottoming tap, so it's just pulled up a little bit short. So when I screw all this together, I'd like to be able to shorten this a bit, but I just don't know how far I can shorten it. The thread on the fitting is not actually that long, and so I'd love to be able to shorten this a bit so it doesn't hang so far out of the motor. I can check it on the bike and have another look at it later, and it's always easy to take a bit off, but it's hard to put it back on. As everything's screwed back together, and I'm actually really pleased with the way it all turned out. I think it should work. Is brass a factor? Well, it could be, but I'm not sure why it would be. I can make it in steel if I have to. You're looking over my shoulder this morning in the shed, and I'm working on the oil input oil feed for the Raleigh, and a few daggy bits where that screw was in there. Originally, the oil fed into here, gravity feed or a pressurised tank, to be honest, and in behind here there was a metering system that spun off the crankshaft and injected a certain amount of oil through a system here and through this piece into the engine. This piece had a little hole for a banjo that's in there, and the oil metering goes into there and it's into the engine. Now, these parts seem to be made of unobtainium. You just can't buy them. I've got some, but they're stuck inside a really manky crankcase and they're super fatigued. They look like they're made of a pot metal of some description, just whatever they had they threw into the bucket. So you might remember I made this out of brass, and I've had a little bit of an adapt and a rejig of it this morning because I had some measurements wrong. I had to shorten this piece down. I'll get a scribe to let it go further into the case so it didn't hang out so far. Wasn't an issue, but it just hangs out a long way. Then I had to cut some extra threads to get it screw in the right distance. Then I had to machine the threads off because that appears to be a blind end to the hole where it's threaded. Or it's not threaded as far as I thought. You do have to leave this little screw out that was off a ball valve, a metering thing. So it does screw in, and it screws in pretty well. Well, it actually screws in really well. I was really pleased with that bit. So that's about it screwed home. It doesn't look too bad at this point. This is the oil fitting I've got, and it will screw on pretty nicely too. And it just starts to touch, and then you just use the bolt to screw it up, and all's well. It'll screw up. Now, it does hang out a long way. Can I learn to live with it? Well, I probably can. I don't know. I'd like to see it 4 or 5 mil shorter or further in, or this piece actually part of that piece. But maybe I bought the wrong fitting, not really sure. It hangs out a long way. It doesn't hang out onto the footrest, so that's okay. And, you know, copper tube, and we'll be able to feed oil into the engine. And that's the main thing because they don't go well without oil. These other holes, that's the original oil inlet. And there's a couple of ball valve screws that must adjust the pressure to get it to flow. Not really sure. I've got the screw, a tiny ball, and the tiniest spring that's all manky and weird and actually broken, falls apart in your hands, sitting there that I took off. I'll get you off the tripod and try and give you a closer look so you can see everything, but at least that will let you see where everything is on the engine. Here at eye level, you can see that it is inside the line of the footrest, so you wouldn't bang your ankle on it or anything like that. It's just a bit clunky right here. It's actually really smooth and looks really great, but it just hangs out a bit far. I could drill that hole deeper and tap the thread deeper and cut a bit off the outside. And I probably could get 4 or 5 mil. At this point, I don't know whether I need to do it right now. I have a tendency to obsess over things and hyper-focus, as my son calls it, on small items. At this point, I'm actually really pleased that I managed to get it done. It looks okay. I've been hunting around and finding fittings for that go in the right place. So that works really well for me. I believe this is just a drip feed for the chain, is what I think it is. I'm not actually sure, but I think that's what that is. Should be the other way around, of course. And oil just a little bit spews out and drips down onto the chain. Everything else is kind of okay, and this is a success, you know, but I think, could it be tidier and could it be cleaner, and might I buy another fitting and try and pull it in to here, like pull it in 3/4 of an inch? Yeah, I might. But for now, it's sort of proof of concept, as I like to say, and it works. That was the oil feed for the engine, and I think it's come out really well. I'm very, very grateful to Simon from the Raleigh Club in the UK. I'm not a member. I think I will join though. Simon does the spare parts for them, and he sent me diagrams and images on how to build that, what it should look like, and he solved what was really going to be one of the major problems for me. That and the spark plug were a really big deal. So I'm really pleased that it's worked out okay. Hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you come back. Think about subscribing to the channel or sharing it with your mates. Cheers. Have a good one.